This is the second video of the Week 10 test. This is concept 9.1. It's B, which means it's the second time, which also means you'll see this one more time next week. So if you really study this and you understand it, next week you'll have a chance to get that 4, bring your grade up to 80 if you didn't have a 4 already, bring it to 100 if you did. And if it's your first 4, then when we hit the intervention test, you'll have a chance to get up to 100. All right, so we have two problems. We have a problem here where we're solving an equation that requires us to distribute and then go through 2 steps. And then in number 3, we're going to write an equation to solve a word problem. So starting with number 2, first thing we're going to do is we're going to think of making this into an addition problem. And then we are going to distribute. We're actually going to look at 2 ways to solve this. So the first way, let's go ahead and distribute. We have 8 times x is 8x, plus 8 times negative 4 is negative 32. All of that equals negative 80. Go ahead and remove the constant term. So since it's plus negative 32, we're going to add 32 to both sides. When we do that, on the left side we have just 8x. On the right side, we're going to have negative, so I'm going to stick my negative sign in there. We're going to keep this idea that there would be 0 pairs in this. If we solved this by writing out 80 negatives and 32 positives, if we went through that, and we're not going to do that, but if we did, we would end up with 32 0 pairs. 32 positives would cancel out 32 of the negatives and would leave us 48 negatives. Our second step is to divide by the coefficient, and when we divide by the coefficient, we get x equals negative 6. Again, if you have difficulty keeping track of the negative signs, as soon as you saw that negative and this 8, we could have taken the 8 and said that's a positive 8. Negative divided by positive always be negative. Now let's look at a second way that we could solve that. So let's go back to 8x plus negative 4. Actually, let's take it back a step further. Let's go to 8 times x plus negative 4 equals negative 80. So the only thing we've done now is we've changed it from subtracting 4 to adding a negative 4. We can treat the 8 as a coefficient. It tells us how many groups of x plus negative 4 there are. So if we treat that as our coefficient and divide by it, we have x plus negative 4 is equal to negative 80 divided by positive 8, negative 10. Now we would add 4 to both sides, and we would get x is equal to negative 6. Notice our answer does not change. Answer can't change. If we do it a second way and the answer changes, we've got a problem. Here again, at this step, in the second way of showing it, when we have negative 10 and positive 4, we'd want to think about the fact that there are going to be 4 0 pairs. We don't want to make the mistake of putting the 10 and the 4 together and getting 14 something. Okay, let's move over to problem number 3. Give myself some extra workspace. So in problem number 3, Mrs. Smith bought 4 boxes of melons. Each box contains 2 watermelons and the same number of honeydew melons. If there were 24 melons in the 4 boxes, how many honeydew melons were there? So the honeydew melons are going to be our variable, and I'm going to use H for honeydew melons. So here's what I know. I know that 4 boxes of melons containing 2 watermelons and some unknown number of honeydew melons give us 24 melons altogether. So I'm going to bring my equation down. 4 times 2 plus h equals 24. I'm going to divide both sides by 4. So now 2 plus h equals 24 divided by 4, which is 6. I'm going to add a negative 2 to both sides to get rid of that constant 2, and I get h is equal to positive 4. You know it's going to be positive. You can't have a negative number of melons. A second way that I could have done this problem once I had my equation is if I have my 4 times 2 plus h equals 24, I could go ahead and I could distribute the 4 times the 2, 4 times the h. That would give me 8 plus 4h equals 24. Go ahead and add a negative 8 to both sides. You know that you're going to end up with a positive because you can't have negative melons. 4h is equal to 16. Divide both sides by the coefficient of 4, and once again we end up with h is equal to 4. 16 divided by 4. All right, so this is a B question. You're going to see it again on the next test. Study this. Come to class, ask some questions if you have questions so that you can really be ready to be successful.